Our text is the gospel lesson for today from the 4th chapter of Matthew. In Jesus' name, amen. From the light of Epiphany, illuminating Jesus as the Christ, to the brilliance of transfiguration, some of us turned out lights. The new season, Lent, began for many of us an evening with darkness, with a dark cross traced upon our foreheads. And now we head toward the world's deepest ever darkness, those hours of Jesus on the cross. From the green of Epiphany, we now find ourselves in the wilderness, where nothing much grows and survival is in question. There is no food. There is no friendly voice. Only Satan. And Jesus faces temptation all alone. This is Lent. Not the ideal time for the commemoration of an ordination anniversary. In Lent, we journey into darkness, into wilderness. In the ancient world, Satan was always depicted as an evil monster, or hell, a place of fire and burning. Don't be deceived. Evil, Satan, and hell are the total absence of God. A complete darkness and nothingness. To be connected to evil, to Satan, is to be detached from reality as we know it, with no points of reference to real life, no common, everyday experience. That is why the desert is Satan's place to tempt Jesus. It is a place of nothingness. Few points of reference. Just endless sand and rocks. No life. No vegetation. Just plain nothing. Endless nothingness. The desert is the absolute opposite of the first paradise, which was filled with the complexity of life, overwhelmed with all kinds of delights. God had created the world out of nothing. The earth was without form and void. Darkness was over the face of the deep. And the very first thing that God did, the first thing he said on the first day was, "Let there be light." And suddenly, darkness, nothingness was dispelled. From now on, all the goodness that God would create could be seen. Light was now separate from darkness. And on the fourth day, lights were placed in the expanse of the heavens to give light on earth, to rule over day and night, to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. What God created good, however, suddenly became very dark when the slithering serpent infected our first parents with sickness through his deceit and guile. The serpent tempted them to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil in the midst of the garden, the tree that would open their eyes to darkness. And so they ate, and their eyes were opened, and they no longer saw the goodness of God's creation. They no longer saw its richness and diversity and complexity. Instead, now their eyes were lowered in shame at their nakedness, as they heard the sound of God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And now they knew fear of total darkness, fear of a life without God. From that moment on, Adam and all of his children would be infected with the virus of sin and death, and darkness would reign over them. If we're honest with ourselves, we must confess that we are Adam's poor, miserable children, that his disobedience has infected us in our very core, and there's nothing good in us, only darkness. As St. Paul said, sin came into the world through one man, and death through sin. So it spread to all men because all sinned. Jesus' first act after his baptism was to do what you and I could not do. The second, greater Adam, was led by the Spirit into the darkness of the wilderness to be tempted by the evil one. Jesus was God's very Son, and the devil knew that the only way to defeat Jesus was to get him to forsake his sonship, his cross, his destiny of suffering the full darkness of those 3 hours on Calvary, where God's violence and anger against Satan's lies and our disobedience were unleashed upon Jesus in the most violent moment the world has ever known. Satan was smart. He was subtle. He said to Jesus, grab a little bit of glory now, Jesus, because you can. Turn these stones into bread. Throw yourself down from the temple. God's angels will protect you. Bow down and worship me. And all these things will be yours. But Jesus knew his destiny was the darkness of the cross. He fought off Satan's attempt to keep him from his appointment with death. And Jesus fought Satan with the only weapon that could defeat him. Jesus spoke that creative word into the darkness, into the nothingness of the wilderness. He knew what the psalmist said was true. Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. The living word of this second greater Adam gave light to Jesus' path all the way to Golgotha, a light that even shines now in our deepest darkness. Satan will make one more attempt to keep Jesus from the cross. In another garden outside of Jerusalem, Jesus sees the cup of God's wrath against our sin, the cup that he must drink on Calvary. He looks over the abyss and he sees the horror of the darkness that he must enter on our behalf. And he cries, my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will. My Father, if this cannot pass unless I drink it, your will be done. Adam and Eve could never say this. You and I cannot say this, for we are their children. Only Jesus can look into the horror of our darkness and faithfully do his Father's will. Only God's fully human Son can do what we cannot do. For as by one man's disobedience the many were made sinners, so by one man's obedience the many will be made righteous. Only through suffering and death is God making right what has gone wrong, to enter into the darkness and bring forth light in the resurrection of his body from the dead. Jesus makes right what has gone wrong by taking on Satan in the wilderness, in the Garden of Gethsemane, on the cross, and triumphing, and then lightening our darkness with the light of his resurrected flesh. Stop, Capricorn. Jesus walked in your darkness on the day of your baptism. And when you were confirmed, you were able to confess faith in that light. And then later, you began your studies in theology at Concordia University, Seward, Nebraska. And entered Concordia Theological Seminary to learn whether or not you were actually called into the pastoral ministry. After graduation, 20 years ago, you received a call from that seminary to serve them in a way that would help others find out whether or not they were called into the pastoral ministry. You were ordained, you had that call, but you weren't on the front lines yet. Later, a call from a congregation, Messiah Lutheran Church in Kenosha, Wisconsin, thrust you into the front lines of the battlefield. As a congregational pastor, where people face darkness every day. You were called to shine the light of Jesus into the lives of those who need to find that salvation and be back in the sin in their time. And then in 2011, an unknown remote congregation called you to come to Rocklin, California, and once again be in the trenches on the front lines of that battle. And so we shine the light on Jesus. And when he shines the light on Jesus, we see both our salvation and the pattern that we are to follow in our lives. And when our suffering becomes so intense and the darkness, so deep, it's you who trace the sign of the cross upon our forehead, reminding us that we are connected to Christ. We are in Christ. And you also feed us with Christ's body and blood at his feet. And then in Jesus, all of us are able to say, not my will, but thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And for this we thank you for your service. Therefore, when we enter darkness, when we succumb to temptations, Jesus is there, present with us, overcoming the darkness because his light is always with us. And when we forget that, it is our pastor, it is you who reminds us. For because Jesus himself has suffered when tempted, he's able to help those who are being tempted. For we have not a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet without sin. Those who suffer through the darkness have nowhere to go but to Jesus. Just as Jesus knew there was nowhere to go but to the word of life during those 40 days of hunger and temptation in the wilderness. You don't need to read this, but I do. Pastor Peppercorn has the words right across here on the pulpit. Sir, we would see Jesus. The Greeks asked that once when Jesus walked this earth. That is also our prayer. We don't want to see a pastor, we don't want to see a building. We would see Jesus. So when you enter a great darkness, you know that Christ went into that wilderness with you. And Christ is always with you. He is always in you, shining his light into the deep recesses of your life. Deep down in the darkness, there is only one source of light. And that is Jesus. our Savior and Lord. Amen. Now the peace of God which passes all understanding, keep our hearts and minds